Hello, so this is my update video for this year. This has been recorded at the beginning of January. It was rather cold and the wind was blowing east, so that these are not ideal conditions for our horses. As you can see, the horse is very stiff, slow, and also hollow-backed, and his belly is hanging a little bit. As he has just come out of his box, I need to let him walk, and I cannot activate him more than that, otherwise he will start getting excited and running, and this of course would be counterproductive, because if he starts running in this position, then he will only warm up all the wrong muscles, and it's not going to be positive for him. So as there's not a lot of changes for a few minutes, I will just give a short update on this horse. So his name is Le Sarrasin, and I have had him for 2 years now. I have done mainly lunging with him. The reason is because he came to us with a very stiff back. He would really not want to go forward at the beginning, even on the lunge. He would stop, kick, lift his head up, and we had to proceed rather slowly with him. Now that I have got a new saddle, I have started riding him a little bit more often. And he has started to walk and trot. But I'm still lunging him quite often. Also partly because he's being still very resistive in the work in hand. So this session turned to be a very long one. And I've had to be very patient because he was not very easygoing, I think. As you can see, after 3 minutes, he's still being stiff, distracted. He's looking outwards. He's not paying very much attention to me. Ideally, I would like him to become gradually less choppy, take longer steps. I would also like to see his back moving sideways a little bit better, and maybe start also getting a little more horizontal. As you can see, he's still hollow-backed. And in fact, I've noticed that as long as his neck is above the horizontal, there's no point in trying to activate him, because it will only give him more energy in a wrong disposition, and in a wrong disposition of mind, and also in the wrong position of the body. If I start activating him now, he will only run with a stiff back and with choppy movements. As you can see there, he spooked for something, and when you see him start moving, he just runs with his head up, lifts his tail, and there's no point in doing that, of course. I really need him to become more relaxed, but relaxed and also dynamic at the same time. When I will see that his neck is getting longer, that his back starts to lift and become less rigid, that his shoulder blade lifts when it goes forward, also when he starts bending his back leg, then I will know that he's getting more ready and that I can activate him a little bit in order to trot, because as you can see now, he's starting to stretch a little bit, but it's not a good the good dynamic stretch that I'm looking for. But it is a first step, in fact. It is also already a positive sign. Now his gait, his pace is a little bit, well, he's taking a little bit longer steps. When he does that, I tend to reward him. I always use the same voice code so that he knows that's what I'm looking for. And when he's becoming more focused, encouragements work very well. Now he's becoming too slow again. He's shortening his pace, and he's also become more distracted. In fact, behavior and attitude go together in a horse. You will always see, particularly with this horse, that when he's not relaxed, when he's not stretched, he's not focused either. So in fact, you need the stretch in order to get your horse to focus on the work. And I must say that the day we filmed this lunging session, he was particularly distracted, and it was particularly difficult to focus him. It is not always the case, fortunately. In fact, I've had so many problems that day that the day afterwards I used fixed reins again for 2 or 3 days. And I also gave him magnesium for a few days because that helps, like for humans, in fact, it helps horses to relax and to become less stressed. And he came round and he was much better after after the fixed reins for 2 days, and he started to behave better too. So now he's stretching again, and as you can see, he's getting his movements are much slower. He's not walking slower, but his movements are slower, so that he takes longer steps. And this is a very good sign. And at the beginning, I even let him slow also his speed. It can be necessary for a few minutes before I can start activating him. I know that it's tedious to watch, but I have decided to let the video run from beginning to end, so that I can explain the way I've been working with this horse for 20 months now. Unfortunately, after these few days, we had frost and snow, and I don't know when I will be able to get a good work in hand session and ridden session, but I will try to add up a little later. I hope in February maybe. So now, of course, after having become stretched and more focused, he lost concentration again, throw his head up, lift his tail, and start running like an Arab. And this is very frustrating because it can go on for quite long periods of time. So now I just let him run for a little bit and I try to get him to walk, because if I want him to trot or canter, I don't want him to trot and canter in such an attitude. There's no point in doing that. But he won't listen to me. What I'm doing now is I'm waiting for him to stretch and become more cadenced so that I can reward him and then ask him to walk again, because I know that he's not going to become more focused if I let him run like that. There's no point in making a horse run wild in the hope that he gets more tired. So I want him to become focused and quiet again. I don't want him to run wild around me. And now that he has come back to the walk, he stretches, I reward him, and I guess that the next thing I'm going to do is to send him in the trot, hoping that he gives me a better trot than what he did beforehand. As you can see here, he's becoming longer. The whole body is longer, the neck is longer, and you can also see that the movement of the shoulder blade has changed. The shoulders are no longer blocked and they don't longer give me a horizontal choppy movement. You can see that the shoulder blades goes forward and up and then down and back. And you can see this round movement in the shoulder, and this is telling me that he's unblocking the wither. Of course, he's not at all stabilized, and he still lifts his head and loses focus again. So I just go on, ask for more walk, waiting for him to stretch. The stretch with this horse, as with many others, of course, is really the basis for everything. As soon as I can get him to stretch his body, become longer, stretch his neck, I will be able to start asking him a trot that is useful for his training. You can still see that he's contracted because his tail, he lifts his tail from at some, not all the time, but you can see that as soon as he lifts his head, he also lifts his tail. Of course, now he's starting to stretch again. And if I get a stretch for a longer period of time, I will be able to ask him to trot. As you can see, he has lengthened his pace. Then he starts slowing the rhythm, and I think I missed an opportunity to send him in the trot. Now that his neck is under the horizontal for a longer period of time, normally I should be able to ask him to trot, but as you can see, as long as his neck comes above the horizontal, he starts getting choppy in front and a little stiff also in the back legs. Now I've been asking him to trot, and my hope, of course, is that he will stay in the stretch while trotting. Okay, it has not worked like I would have liked to. He starts countering. I don't do much about it. I just wait to see if he's going to trot again. He's losing focus, but he gives me a good stretch. This, of course, I'm happy about. What I want to do now is um, keep him in a good trot, but of course it's not going like I would like to. He starts cantering, and as he's not ready to canter, he gives me a very bad canter. He's hollow, his head is up, and this is not what I'm looking for. I want him to trot, I want him to stretch and give me a good, well, this is not bad, a good trot. And I hope to get that for a few circles before I could ask him to canter, because sometimes he relaxes and stretches better in the canter than in the trot. So now he is trotting, and at this minute the trot is good. You can see the back is moving up and down. He's stretching the neck, and you can see some thrust also in his movements. Of course, he's not yet in the zone, as he's losing focus very often and looking outwards. There he just saw the cat, but more and more you can see that he's coming back into the zone, coming back in the focus more often. Now his trot is not bad, but as I said, he's relaxed. You can see his tail is going from side to side, but he's still lifting the tail. That tells me that he's not, even though he's stretched, he has not activated all the right muscles. I expect that he's going to give me some troubles. And what he's doing now, in fact, is bending the neck a little bit too much into the circle. And this is because he's not fully stretched. And the proof of that is that he lifts his head up again. He's losing focus. So I'm getting where I want him to be bit by bit, but it is taking some time. As I already said, that day was very cold and windy, and it can be very difficult to work properly with Le Sarrasin when the weather is like that. Now you see that he has lost focus again. He has popped his head up, gone into the canter, and I'm just thinking of how to go about it. Do I let him canter, or well, I have to react in according to what I see him doing. Here, what I'm doing is, as he started canter on his own, what I'm doing is I wait for him to stretch in the canter before I let him go into the trot again. Because of course I don't want him to get into this habit where he starts cantering or changing gait on his own initiative. So when I will see that he stretches properly in the canter, I will ask him to trot again. And if he loses it again in the trot, then I will send him back into the canter. Because after some time, the canter can be used with this horse to get more focus. So now he's giving a trot that is not bad at all, I think. He's tracking up more. He has stretched his neck out. His body is becoming longer, but I know that he can give me more than that. And as I said already, tail is lifted because somewhere in his back, I think there is still some muscles that are contracted, and he's not giving me the best stretch he can. Another sign for that is also that his neck is rather flat and downward. When he is in a fully good stretch, then his neck is lifted and curved a bit more than that. As you see, now he's losing energy, and I use this opportunity to make a transition into the walk. Because he has given a trot that was not that bad. Now he's looking more relaxed than he was at the beginning of the session. You can see that his steps are longer. His body is is swinging sideways, but of course his back is still dropped. He's relaxed but not stretched in the walk. I let him let off some steam, and after a while I suppose that I'm going to work into trot again. And this all depends on what I see him doing. Now I ask for some trot, and as you see, he lifts his head when he breaks into the trot, and what you see me doing is lift my hand up. This is something I do in order to keep an upward contact in the mouth. So if I let my hand down when his head is up, there's a risk of pulling his head down, which of course doesn't work. So I lift my hand up, and when I do that, normally he tries to come into the contact with the hand. He again lowers his neck and opens at the throat, and he comes into the stretch again. Here, what we can see is a stretch that is not active enough. Again, his steps are a little longer. He bends his hind leg better. You can see some upwards movement in the back, but he's still dragging his head down in some ways, and the tail is also showing some contractions somewhere in his body. As he has become quieter and more focused, I am able to activate him a bit more with the lunging stick, even though I still have to be gradual. I need to strike a good balance between the energy I'm giving him and the quality of his gait. I notice, and I have no explanation for that, but I notice that when he becomes stretched and more active, he usually comes nearer to me in the circle. He makes a shorter circle, which of course for me is okay, because when he's on a shorter circle, he has more bend, and that also helps to gain more stability. Here he has, I don't know, he's poking again at something. I don't know what he saw, but as he has been working already for some time, he comes back into the stretch quickly, and I don't do much about that. I just let it happen and wait for him to cool off and stretch again. Now I am making stop because I'm going to change hand. I always try to work as much on the right hand as on the left hand, of course. And voilà. So as you can see now, he has changed hand, and it's very peculiar with that horse is that when he starts walking on the second hand of the session, he's stiff again, as if he just came out of his box. It's always been like that, and it stays that way. So what I have to do when I change hand is walk again for quite some time before I can activate him and work in the trot or in the canter. And that's what I'm doing here. That's why I just let him walk without asking for more than this. And once again, I wait until he's going to pull his neck, make a longer neck, and stay beyond the horizontal, which is a sign for me that I can start asking for trot or canter depending on the conditions and on what I want to do with him. Now he's beginning to relax again, taking longer steps, lifting his feet a little bit more, and loosening his back too. But I don't want to rush things because as he has been, it's taken a long time to get him into a good trot. I don't want to um, make him excited again, and because then his muscles become hard again, and it's difficult to work properly. I can see that he's again losing focus and looking everywhere for a reason to spook. And so I try to get some of his attention by activating him with the whip. He can be either a little indifferent and not listening to me, or too excited. In fact, he just falls into one of these two reactions. So that I had to change my lunging whip, and I adapted to it a cloth line that he can feel more if I touch him. Because at the beginning, when I had him, he didn't react at all to the lunging whip. It was a soft. It was too soft, and he would not react. So now that he knows that he can feel it, he becomes more reactive to it. Well, now his gait is becoming better. There, I just touched him with the whip because he did not respond to me. I wanted him to walk with more energy, and he didn't react. So I just touched him on the hind leg, and now that reminds me that I can touch him, and he's going to be more responsive. And in fact, it was not useless because his walk has become a little more active, and now he has stretched his neck out, which is a good first step in the progression of the work. Now I suppose that I'm going to be asked to ask for more trot, and you can see that the shoulder is freer, the steps are a little longer too, and there is still something bothering him as he's lifting his tail again. I'm asking for a more energetic walk, a little more energy in the walk before I ask him to trot. Now he's stretching again, but he's not stable. Huh? He stretches, then he lifts his head up. He's being difficult, a little difficult, I think, that day. But even so, I decided to show the video because it's also an illustration of the difficulties we are faced with when we lunge. Every days are different, and we have to deal with the situation as it is, and voila. But normally by the end of the video, he's going to show some good moves, um, and that's interesting to watch too. You can see the difference between how his body moves when he is nervous and how his body moves when he is stretched, and the quality of the gait changes a lot. Now the walk is getting better and better, I think, and he's tracking up more, and his body also becomes longer. It's not only the neck that is stretched, his back his body is becoming longer too. And I can see that in the work at the trot also, where you can see that at first he starts to stretch his neck, but his body remains rather short and yes, short. And then after some times when he loosens and becomes more energetic, you can really see that his body is becoming longer, and all the upper joints of his legs are moving much more and better, so that he's tracking up more and that he starts carrying his back uh, more in a more stable way. Now you can see that the stretch isn't bad, because he really has stretched his neck. He has also loosened at the pole, and then I ask for some trot in the hope again that of course he's going to give me a good trot. But he's being a little resistive. He slows down. He doesn't really go actively forward in the trot, and he's becoming also showing some excitement. But I decide that I can activate him a bit more, and there you can see that he slows down. I think all this is he's showing resistance. He's a kind horse, but he's also rather stubborn. And I suppose that it has to do with his form of education. I don't know. I heard 2 months ago that his very first owners seemed quite ignorant of how to deal with horses, and as he was being lazy in the arena, they would throw things at him to make him go forward, and all these, of course, have build up problems and difficulties that show up from time to time in a difficult session like this one. Now we can see that has stretched his neck. He has also started stretching the back. And this is the point where you can really start asking for more activity, and where it's going to show that there's more activity. And at some point, we will see that the back starts moving, and that he becomes more stable in this in this gate. Now I don't know what he did. He just jumped. Something happened. So I asked him for some canter. Also because sometimes the canter gives him more activity, and then the trot, when he breaks into the trot again, is much better than what I had before that. It is sometimes easier to ask for a downwards transition from canter into trot to get a good trot than trying to push on a trot that is not active enough. And that's what happened here. You can see that the trot has become better, but well, he's not as cooperative as he sometimes is. And so I asked for some canter again to try and see how the trot is when he breaks into the trot. And you can see here some good movements. And here the trot is, I think I'm quite happy with this trot. But as I said, this session is not showing the best of him. But I think it's interesting in a way because it shows the types of difficulties that we all meet when we work with horses. Here, I think the trot is good. And I hope that in February now I will be able to show some work in hand and some written work with him. Voilà. So I think that all tensions are not totally gone because his tail is still lifted up. Now he's slowing a bit. He's a bit too slow and losing the stretch. Maybe that if I had pushed him forward a bit earlier, I wouldn't have lost the dynamics he was in. Voilà. But now also my cameraman is cold because he's been staying there in the wind for some time now. So I decide that I'm going to end it here after a few more circles at the trot. There you saw him lifting his head. I lift my hand. He comes into the stretch again. But it's taken more than half an hour and he still is a little jumpy and spooky. And this of course is it's not so often the case, but okay, that day was like that. This is the last stretch in the trot. And I am quite happy. You can see the shoulder moving, the hind legs bending, and now I ask him to go into the walk again. Voilà. And now that's the end. Thank you for watching.